Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for another video on Marvel Contest of Champions and a new sort of series called Variant 2, Savage or Not. And basically what we're going to do in this series is over the next couple of weeks, or maybe longer than that, we're going to identify and look at the key champions that have XL properties that have been given special buffs for this particular variant and see whether or not they're a savage or they're not. One thing I'll probably mention in all of these particular videos is that you don't have to use the XL champions. I know, it's surprising, but the fact is people are using a very much heavy attack based method, either using Archangel, Domino, and a few other champions that have really decent heavy attacks. And the method to go into parry and then hit the heavy, for example with Domino, incredible incinerates with Red Hulk, and at the same time with Archangel hitting up neurotoxins can output a huge amount of damage. Although not everybody has those champions. Some may have the XL champions, which are the champions that I'm going to focus on in this particular series. This is the full list of buffs here. The links will be in the description below in order to go over to see these. But at the same time, through each video and each champion we're going to focus on, or grouping of champions, we're going to then go, right, well, this is the buff. This is what the key properties are. Here's lanes that benefit more than just that, and maybe other champions to think about when you're doing this. Either way, let's jump into this. And for those that may be a little bit worried about, keeping up to date with the series, and the fact is we're going to be focused on certain things and then jumping to other sections as I go through complete and 100% variant 2. You can keep up to date with a playlist, which will be somewhere here. So make sure if you are lost to just check out the playlist. I will put a link in the description as I build up this playlist of videos. And without further ado, let's get into this video. The kicking off the series, we're going to be talking a lot about Hulkbuster and seeing if he is a savage for this, but also focusing on Sentinel as well as MODOK and that heavy attack method. Right, let's jump ourselves over into 2.3. Here we are in 2.3. Heavy machinery is the global buff, which is going to be beautiful for us, but there is a negative with this. Let's talk about the positive first. It's that if you have an armor up or force field buff active, basic attacks deal 10% additional energy damage and have a 30% chance to leave a stacking shock debuff on the defender. In practicing this, it was better to use a champion like MODOK, but yes, Hulkbuster can be viable. We'll go more into that in a moment, but the local node negates that. Crumbling armor. This is the point where it puts a debuff effect on a armor break if you haven't hit the enemy. So it's kind of crappy because you kind of think, right, I've got this ready, it's really good to go, but I've just been armor breaked if you've got that on. This is why MODOK is a better champion for this, and we'll talk about that in a second. But also, just to get it completely out there, heavy attack method does work as well. There are some points here and going along further where you've got high amounts of regeneration, and neurotoxins can really help out for this situation. If you hit out with anything that's not a parry and a heavy attack, it does not work. It's going to be painful for you, it's going to glance, and at the same time you will take damage. You can throw L3s. I've done it. You can throw L3s and you don't receive any damage back. Especially with a champion like Domino, she is pretty darn good with really powerful bleeds off of an L3. I mean, I've had good luck with it. Other people's chances may vary with this, but it is a method. The heavy attack, the parry, heavy attack method. But also you don't have to use the heavy attack method. The XL champions are still good enough. You've got Hulk Ragnarok that has some heal blocking abilities and, is a complete powerhouse, as we all know. We've also got MODOK and Sentinel that have heal blocking abilities and in some cases heal reversing abilities, which is very much handy for this lane here. However, though, I would probably say if you want to access more of the heavy machinery type buff, then I don't think that Sentinel is going to be good for this. And the reason I say that is you have to build up to an L3 to get that armor passive. But if it's a case that you don't hit within 6 seconds based on the crumbling armor, this is the point where the champion, if he loses it, then you've got to build up to another L3 to get it. So it's kind of crappy because your damage output will be better with just smacking in an L2 for that incinerate damage, or going into a parry heavy attack method to put on the shock debuff on the enemy. If you really want to maximize your heavy machinery, it's either going to be a case of using MODOK or Hulkbuster. So let's now focus on Hulkbuster. Let's begin by using the 5-star unawakened version. To begin with, it doesn't really look like we're getting any armor up buffs, nothing really that can be seen. And this is the point that makes you kind of feel, right, well, this is good, but also it's very bad at the same time, because we want to be seeing those armor buffs in order to be able to do something about putting some shock damage in. Yeah, we put an armor break, which is fine. And this just obviously seems pretty standard. Nothing really coming up, no great damage. So is Hulkbuster, or does Hulkbuster feel like a Savage? To begin with, the answer does seem like a no. But I'll continue on the fight and see if it definitely feels like it's worth either ranking up. I think the Awakened version is probably going to be the better option rather than the Unawakened version. We're seeing no shock damage whatsoever. So if you want to maximize damage output, you could just say to yourself, maybe it's best to use another one. It does feel it's a little bit better. Yeah, I couldn't really stand that any longer, but this is the time when things change a little bit. As you can see, we're hitting in through, we're stacking. That's that Awakened ability hitting in, and now you can see we had 4 stacks then. I'm just going to hit in now. There's another one that's going on. It's not a great amount. It's not ticking for very much damage, which is a little bit disappointing. And obviously now we've got an armor break on. We need to shrug that off in order to get back there again. Now the method that I'm employing to use is build the champion to an L1 and then swipe back for the evade. Same principle that I've used before with other champions is build the enemy up to an L1. So there we have it. That was the damage that I was able to do with an Awakened version of Hulkbuster. Would I consider ranking up the champion to 550? Difficult to say. It is very difficult to say. But some of the stuff that you see coming in some of the nodes, it could be a possibility. One of the easier lanes will probably be the outside lane, especially when you come inside. There are things that are a little bit trickier, especially this lane here with Mutant Wrath. And it's obviously good if you have your mutant character, but there's not many ones that do that. I mean, you could go back to the Domino theory about doing the heavy attack, and also you could say the same thing with having Archangel. But again, same principle here, because it's regen. MODOK could be a lot more viable for this. Damage output with shock, number 1. Number 2 being the reverse of heal. And number 3 just being a decent champion. So it could be very effective here. I think MODOK has got to be this lane here, or Sentinel down here. But Sentinel's viability is a little bit less if you want heavy machinery. Great champion, nothing against the champion. But if you want to utilize that heavy machinery, I think that it's got to be Hulkbuster. But do you really need it? It doesn't really look like you do. However, though, I'd like to know if somebody had rank 3'd, even rank 4'd an Awakened version, and see how much shock damage has been there. Put something in the comment section below, whether or not you have a 345 version and how much damage how many tick damage you're actually seeing. And even here with Oscillate, you know, this would be fine for it, but you could use any XL champion. But I feel that if you want to maximize heavy machinery, it's going to be MODOK, or it's going to be a heavily Awakened version of Hulkbuster for this. Either way, it's good to see Hulkbuster being utilized a bit further, but it's still pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about the XL champion usage in Variant 2. So there we go, guys. As I get through this, I'm going to do this at a slow pace and also look at those older champions for utilization and put out this series in the playlist. As I said, link is in the description. And as well, I've got Rhino, I think, up next, and so many other champions, but I've got about 2 weeks, and I want to smash out loads of videos on this to then help people out at a later date, and also at the same time look at viability of those older champions. Pretty exciting. I'm pumped for this series, so join me along for the ride. I've been Rich the Man. Like, share, and subscribe, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.